Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Top Down Podcast. Today, I have an awesome person that you may know and seen kind of go viral on LinkedIn. His name is Jeremy Berman, and he's the founder of Good United. And hey, man, just take it away. I want you to plug yourself and your business and tell the folks about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So like you said, my name is Jeremy Berman. I'm the co-founder of Good United. My co-founder and I started Good United 9 years ago with the same vision that we have today. And the vision is to empower nonprofits to have a one-to-one relationship with every supporter. As I'm sure we'll get into the culture conversation today, it has not been a straight path to where the organization is today. And in fact, we had to do three pretty big pivots before we were able to find product market fit with the solution that we have today that's still focused on that same vision that I hit with. So today, Good United is the worldwide leader in conversational messaging, helping nonprofits build relationships and drive revenue in social channels. So today, 99% of donations come in through Facebook and social channels, and that's where we are initially focused, but we are rapidly expanding to other channels because if there's one thing that I'm fairly certain on, it is where donors are going to give in 2, 5, certainly 10 years is going to be different than where they're given today. And we are just grateful to be part of this journey, helping nonprofits in any way that we can.
That's awesome. I mean, I love the fact that you said, you guys have this vision and it's something very important to you. And regardless of how much you pivot, that vision is essential.
Yeah, it's been the driving force that I think has kept us going after all these years.
I mean, that's kind of proof of concept for me. I'm kind of like selfishly happy that you said that because, I help startups build their mission, vision, and values out
Mhm.
because of this right here. Like, it's so important to have a good vision, regardless of these pivots, because everyone, employees, as well as founders and C-suite, know what we're going for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would add
Mhm.
as well that it needs to be true. So I could see a lot of organizations going through the motions of building mission and vision and values just to check that box. But if
Right.
you don't deeply care about those things and the problem you're solving, I imagine you would quickly lose motivation when things get tough.
Thank you, preach. Because I can't, there's something to be said about integrity. That's a big value of mine, but just it has to be real, like you said, like
Yeah.
or it'll founder. Um, but many of you, do know Jeremy from a viral post, like I was talking about 4 months ago. You had talked the post, I mean, got like probably millions of views because it has like 160,000 reactions and 5,000 reposts. So, you talked about a performance review. Can you kind of talk about that for the people who don't know?
Yeah. I can't believe I'm asking this question. It's kind of embarrassing.
What was it?
Yeah, I write a lot of content on LinkedIn and I should have read this one before coming in here, but can you just remind me
Yeah, no,
what the review was specifically?
that's a good thing because that means you've probably done a lot of things like good things like I'm about to say
Yeah,
a lot, so this is good. So this one was I had an honest one-on-one performance feedback with an employee, told him he wasn't meeting the standards, and then he said I'm fired. Or he asked you if he was fired.
that's right. Um, yeah, so one of the, I would say, leadership principles that we work to instill at Good United is transparency as well as the pursuit of healthy conflict. And then
Mm,
I would sprinkle on top the saying that we talk a lot about, which is bad news doesn't get better with age.
yes, sir.
One of the learnings that we've had throughout the years is that myself or my co-founder, like, will often feel something, but initially we were hesitant to address that issue head on.
Mhm.
And what we found was that it would often peek its head up into other areas, and 2 months down the road, you have a much bigger problem because we weren't confident enough to address it in the moment.
Mm,
So something that we practice and really work hard to do is to share feedback constantly.
love
And
that.
we share it in a way that is constructive. And we actually train everyone that we onboard how to give constructive feedback. So in this example, we were working on this really important project. We had an individual on the team whose heart didn't seem to be in it the same way that it was. This is someone that had moved states to be part of Good United. The passion, was firing on all cylinders not that long ago, and I could I could sense this change of energy coming from him. So I try to have regular one-on-ones with everybody that I directly manage to share both what's working, but also these areas of opportunity. And I was very direct, and I shared with him, I feel like there's been a change of energy. The way that's impacting me is I'm now concerned that like something's wrong in your home life or something's wrong with work, and I want to do what I can to like break free, whatever your stressor is, if possible, so that you can keep being as good as I know you can be. And it was kind of like this. As soon as I said it, you could feel like just the energy in our relationship change. And he immediately like felt at ease to like tell me what was really going on. And, it gave us an opportunity to work through what he was thinking and get to a place that worked out best for both sides.
That's awesome. I mean, that speaks magnitudes to your leadership, period. Like, because you had a massive amount of empathy and emotional intelligence and high key emotional intelligence to realize that this person's been awesome before. Something has shifted. And instead of, attaching to this, it could be something, they're just a dirtbag, for lack of better terms. There must be something else. And you saw that.
Yeah. My ask of people when they're here is that they give it their all. And I don't care, if you stay for 10 years or you stay for shorter than that, but I want you to be here for the right reasons, and the right reasons need to be in alignment between what we're working on in the company and what you personally want to accomplish. And when we can find that sweet spot, is when we really are able to do our best work.
I concur. And, I don't know you from Adam since today, but I'm just, thank you for doing that for people, because I wish more people did. But I did want to ask you as well today, like, obviously you've had your own career even prior to Good United, and maybe you have some leadership lessons or lack thereof that you've learned from past experiences that were, bad management, poor culture, things like that.
Yeah. I can just share just some things about myself and then others that I've experienced being around people. But as a leader at Good United now for 9 years, I've had my own evolution on my leadership journey. And when my co-founder Nick and I first started this, we were 2 or 3 years out of business school, had some management experience, but not a ton in terms of leadership experience. And I think there's a big difference between those two.
Yes, sir.
And I found that early on, I would react very emotionally in the moment to different situations that were happening. And it was a real distraction to everyone in the company.
Right.
And one of, the evolutions that I've had is to really try to separate like emotion from fact and just take these things as different data points and take the time that I need to process what I'm actually feeling, what I'm actually thinking, and then deliver the feedback or whatever it is in a really constructive way, as opposed to just hearing something and reacting, hearing something, reacting, hearing something, reacting,
Right.
which is definitely how I started.
I empathize. I do.
And then regards to, different leaders that I've been around, I'll tell a story of a leadership experience that wasn't great, that I definitely learned from. And before I had started Good United, I had worked at another startup at the really early stages. There was maybe 5 of us that were all, in the same room, working long hours, trying to get this thing off the ground from 0 to 1. The founder at the time was about my age. I was probably 28 at the time. And again, somebody that didn't have real good leadership experience. He had been an individual contributor in his own prior company before starting this, where now he was instantly a founder and a leader and all of that. And one of his character traits was that he had a very hot temper. And he, as I was saying about myself, would react
Right.
in a way that just immediately shifted the energy of the company. And it was like based on how he was feeling that day, whether it was good, whether it was bad, everyone was kind of on that pendulum with him, which is really distracting when there are a million things to do at an early stage startup and doesn't produce people's best work. So that was being on the other side of that, feeling what that's like, was something that definitely shaped how I've been able to evolve as a leader over time.
Absolutely. I feel like when certain people within leadership positions act like Jekyll and Hyde, sometimes it can, like you said, very much affect everyone else, under them. I worked for a CEO at one point who was a billionaire, and it was kind of a startup aerospace company. And we knew by what car he drove in that day what his attitude was going to be.
Okay.
I don't know the psychological stuff behind
Yeah,
that, but we knew.
for sure. This dude that I'm referring to would like literally scream, like yell top of his lungs. He came from, I think, a finance background, and like that was just how people reacted there.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, very traumatic for many of the people that worked for him.
Right? It's like some Wolf of Wall Street
Yeah,
craziness there. No, thank you.
exactly.
So again, everyone listening, there's something to be said about some of your best leadership lessons can come from people you don't want to be like. Um,
Yeah.
but in regards to some of your best lessons in a positive way, I want to touch on that as well.
Yeah. So right after I graduated business school, I was working at IBM. And I had a technology background in consulting, but had never been in the product management role that I was in at that time, working really closely with developers and very technical folks.
Mhm.
And I was always, at least for that first year, like very uncertain of my role because I was just trying to absorb and listen and like try to just be a sponge for all the information so that when I did lean in and contribute, it was a well thought out response and not just, me trying to speak to be heard.
Right.
And there was a bunch of people there that I looked up to, but there was one executive. He was probably 2, 3, 4 levels above me at the time. But for whatever project I was working on, I was reporting directly to him. And he said something to me that I still applied to this day because it was so transformational. He
Mhm.
said, Jeremy, like, I know, like, I'm a VP and you're just, a product manager, but how I work is that you manage me or I manage you.
Mm.
And I stopped to try to process what that meant. And when
Right.
I realized what he meant, it was so impactful. And what he meant was that he trusted me to do my job. And he was very clear in what the objectives were and what the desired outcome was. And it wasn't his job to tell me how to do it. He was telling me the goal, giving me the boundaries, and letting me get to work.
Mhm.
However, if I didn't proactively communicate to him what I was working on, the progress I was making, the challenges that I was having, then he was going to assume that I wasn't doing anything. And then his natural inclination is going to start asking me a lot of questions, and it's going to feel very like micromanagey.
Right. Right.
And it was this aha moment where, as a junior leader working with an executive, I felt empowered. Where,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like you want me to manage you? Like this
Right.
seems, yeah, what are you talking about? But it was such a good moment for me to really understand what good leadership looks like. And I say that now to the people on my team all of the time. It's like, I hired you. I trust you to do your job. I believe you're the best at what you do. I'm not going to be here asking you questions along the way, like checking in every day, unless I never hear from you.
Right.
So it's your job to feed me information, to feed me context, let me know how I can best support you. And I'm here for it all day. But if you don't, I'm going to assume something's wrong, and I'm going to come over the top and just start asking a bunch of questions, and that's not going to be our best working relationship.
Right. And it makes me think about that phrase that, manage up. And this is a perfect
Yes.
example of doing it correctly. I think a lot of people haven't misconstrued what that means, but this is a perfect example of how it's done right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and, one of the last questions I always ask every CEO on the podcast, because this is kind of a big deal to me, having a good work culture, what problem does that solve?
Um,
It's deep, man.
um, I think of culture more as an opportunity versus something that we're doing to solve a problem. But I could understand how it could cause problems if you don't do it well.
Exactly.
So we have a goal here at Good United, and it goes back to what I was saying before of like people giving it their all. But in return, I want everybody that joins and spends time at Good United to look back and to think that this was truly the best work of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be the best work, not because we got a cool office and not because we throw badass summer and winter parties, which we do,
Nice.
but because we've created this culture, this environment where there are genuinely good people that care about the work that they are doing and they believe in the vision behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we try to translate that into actionable frameworks for our organization are through a handful of what we refer to as leadership principles,
Mm-hmm.
which I think demonstrate the type of culture that we're working to build here. I'll give you a few examples of them. One is always assume positive intent. So at the end of the day, if we're all aligned on what the desired outcome is, then it's just a communication problem of how we can gain alignment and work together.
Mm-hmm.
Another driving leadership principle that has really helped change the trajectory of this company is pain plus reflection equals growth. So we at Good United embrace failure.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not failing, we're not pushing the envelope of innovation and we're eventually going to die.
Fact.
So failure is 1000% not only acceptable, but expected. But it's unacceptable to not learn from that failure so that we can all move forward and grow from it in the future.
Right.
So being able to embrace failure, being comfortable with failure, being transparent when you fail are attributes that I don't think come naturally to a lot of people, but are really important to embrace if you're going to fit into the culture of Good United.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Y'all are doing things how you're doing it, because too many, startups, and I'm sure that you can speak to this as well. Culture is an afterthought. People are an afterthought. It's the product, it's the service, and they forget that you have to have this, solid foundation to build from, and it's your people who get that service and product out there.
Yeah. And to that point, Nick's my co-founder. We always say like we set the standard for what we want the culture to be, but it's now up to everybody else to maintain it and evolve it. And I'm going to butcher this saying, but I believe it with all my heart, which is every time somebody breaks the standard for the culture,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes the new baseline. Because there's so many new people here that when they see somebody doing something that's against the culture, they just assume that is the culture. So now we've reset what the culture is, and it's only going down. So it's up to everybody to maintain that standard, because it's not Nick and I anymore. It's everybody else that we have brought on to help us unlock this mission and vision, and it's up to them to carry it forward.
I would clap very loud, but it would jack up the audio of this podcast. But that is absolutely amazing. There's so much, every word you spoke today is something that people can benefit from. Their company can do better. But there's a reason that y'all don't have competition because of how you're doing things. And so I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Continue to do what you're doing. Thank you again for being on today. I hope everyone enjoyed the episode, and we'll talk to y'all soon.